Before of the Godzilla creepypasta. So, when I got back to the game, I was getting very upset and confused. I thought about the way the monster looked at me. The game couldn't have heard what I said. That's impossible. To be a random occurrence. Well, why did it happen? Precisely at the moment I insulted the monster. Nothing about the game made sense. The new Godzilla monster, the weird replacement monsters, out of place imagery like the green template, quiz levels, and the red monster chases. It didn't seem to add up in any kind of meaningful way. If it was a prank, it wasn't funny in any way. I couldn't understand, and they clearly put far too much effort into it. If they were trying to make a genie squeal with the new Godzilla monster, then why did they add everything else? Maybe it was some kind of art experiment, some group project made by a bunch of really talented and crazy people, and they lost the cartridge somehow, or maybe they intended for some random person to find it. It was all just foolish guessing. As far as I could tell, there was only one way to figure out what the deal with this game was, to play it through to the end. Maybe, just maybe, there would be something in the credits and an explanation by the creators as to why they made this. Or it could be something much more cryptic and strange, maybe even something horrifying. Before I got a look at the dementia board, I considered replaying the trance to see if the red monster would look at me again. But I decided against it. I wanted to keep moving forward. I also somewhat was worried backtracking might cause the game to become even more strange. The detrimental board music sounded a lot like the Saturn music, except it was slowed down and played with a piano-sounded instrument. Like most of these new map themes, it had a dangerous, suspected feel to it. While listening to the music, I looked at the Densimona board. There were 4 boss monsters. This time, Space Godzilla, Manta, Gandit, and Barga. I was surprised to see there were 2 new Toha monsters this time, but the best surprise was still to come. I started the quiz level. Here's another list of results in the same format as the last one. Quiz 2. Can you swim? Yes. Do you like fish? Yes. Can penguins fly? No. Can it spin in all directions? There was no clarification of what face meant by it, so I just guessed. No. Do you breathe? Do you breathe oxygen? Yes. Does it taste good when you bite a woman? I don't know who came up on this question, so I really hope it meant to help. No. Is it night where you are? Yes. Do you like cats? Yes. Is water wet? Yes. Have you ever broken bone? No. Do you like your job? Yes. Well, would you like a new monster? Yes. I wasn't entirely sure what face meant by the new monster, but it couldn't resist answering yes, just to see what would happen. The results was mind-blowing. The game took me back to the board, and I had a new playable monster in the form of Arjun. Ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to play as Angus, since he was my second favorite Godzilla monster, and plus, I never liked Martha all that much. I moved my new Argus piece over to the level right next to it, eager to test out my new monster. Before I got to the level description, I'll talk about Argus a bit. Using the up and down buttons, you could choose whether Argus stood in a bipedal, ascended, or crawled around on all fours. It wasn't a huge difference, but being able to stand was helpful in boss fight, and crawling sometimes dodges obstacles and attacks. He could punch and kick like Godzilla, but no tail whip. Instead, he had something far more interesting, the ability to curl up in a spike ball of death and roll around. You could still take damage, but it was less in a good way of stranding enemies. But unfortunately, doing this also drains the power ball. But the spike ball wasn't just his only special ability. When you press start, he would fire a beam of energy from his mouth. It resembled a Tyrannosaurus sworn attack, and if this was a hack, it may have been inspired by the roar attack from Atari's Godzilla fighting games. Also of note, this was played Angus. The level meteor gets glitched up, judged by the level and Powerball. I'd say he's on level 10. Now on to the level. As you might have guessed from the level icon, these levels are green planted swamps from around the background titles from the Blue Mountains. But what immediately caught my attention was the water, which has a translated effect. Was that even possible for an NES game? I know Super Nintendo could do it, but I had never seen a translated effect on NES. The Green Mountains music was playing on the same instrument as the Blue Mountains, but the melody was totally different. It was a simple song with a lot of pauses, followed by a note of seconds. Anyway, I went through the usual stroll through the level, and again there was no monsters or anything, but pretty soon I reached a cliff above the water. There was nowhere to go but into the water, so down I went. The water transpassing made things a bit harder to see, but it's tolerable. After going underwater, I encountered 2 new enemies, a giant piranha and some kind of spiky bottom feeder thing. I liked the piranha because it could easily tell what it was. It was a sane enemy design that would appear in a real game, and there were very few enemies like this. They didn't take much hits to kill, but they were quite annoying and could constantly trim down your life to get close enough to tend your travel in packs. As for the bottom feeders, they were easy to deal with. They swim along the bottom of the screen towards you, and they easily crush with roll attack or jump over. In this screen cap, you can see me about to run on of them over. And there's a pack of piranha behind you. After I beat the level, I moved Godzilla onto the blue castle icon. I started the level and I got a title screen with the text, Unfolding Cold. The level itself looked like a castle dungeon made of blue bricks with rows of identical white statue faces on the walls. These statue faces had a permanent look of horror on their faces. There was also some flickering gray static, which didn't really obscure my vision, but it adds to the very unsettling mood of these levels. The music was a 12-second loop of a low-pitched choir oscillating that sounded very familiar to me. Whenever I played through one of these levels, I got that sudden, horrible feeling of anxiety. I had a feeling that the farther I progressed through the level, the closer I was getting to something unspeakably evil. There weren't any enemies, but there were some of the longest levels in the game. I only played one level, but it took me 7 minutes to complete. I didn't want to admit to myself that this time, but I realized something playing the Blue Castle level. This game has the power to make the player feel certain things. I don't mean in the sense that you're getting playing a crappy game or you get unnerved by some scary thing in a game. What I mean is when certain events in this game instantly make you start feeling something. I know that this sounds completely insane. I don't blame you for not believing me. I wouldn't believe any of this either if I didn't play the game myself. But there is something very, very wrong with this game. But I still don't know how to explain it. So then it was time to fight for the replacement. Although Bargain was originally the smallest monster in the game, his replacement was the largest. It was so tall, in fact, the ground was notably lowered, and that Bargain's head still barely avoided collisions with the ball at the top of the screen. You may be wondering how he attacks without arms. Well, he has the most powerful kick in the game, but his other fighting techniques is much stranger. First, he blasts a cloudy breath of pixels down at you, which causes you to freeze. Then he walks back to the right corner of the screen and extends a huge Gatling gun from his abomination. That might seem assuming to you, but it certainly wasn't to me. When I was playing the game, these attacks almost as annoying as a giant's saw, and not Bargain. I could have been untenable if he constantly uses it. Thankfully, he only did it twice while fighting him. Once you unfreeze, you can run up and start damaging the gun, which does extra damage to him. This helped me to destroy him. And then it was time to play the third level type. I decided that I was going to use Artemis to fight Manda and Giant, and then fight Space Godzilla. As Godzilla, it was only fitting. But before getting into the battles, I'll describe my third level type, the Arctic. The Arctic is exactly what you would guess from the name, an icy tundra with a few watery segments. The music reminded me a bit of Northern Hemisphere from Donkey Kong Country in 8-bit form, a very dangerous sounding song. It made me think that I was about to think about being trapped in a tundra and freezing to death. There were two new enemies in this stage. The first was a creature frozen in a block of ice. They block you away, and you have to use your heat beam to thaw them out of the ice. They look a bit like a smaller version of not Godzilla, only without the eye. When freed, they do a strange crawling movement and push you backwards. It doesn't cause any damage, but it's a bit annoying. After dealing with the Iceman, I kept walking for a minute or two and came upon a water segment. I jumped in, and this time I managed to get a screen cap showing how the water splashes when you jump in. Don't know how they programmed that, but it's pretty impressive. Another interesting thing is how the screen changes focus when you're underwater. Here you can see the other new enemy, a little thing I call Spike Walker. They walk towards you and explore randomly or instantly if you attack them, sending spikes in every direction. The spikes don't do much damage, but they did get me dangerously close to falling into a pit a few times. That's actually going to be all, because I have 2 more minutes left until my time runs out, and this chapter is like halfway done, so I'm going to make this chapter into a 2-parter, so